Coming up, Giannis drops half 100 and the Grizzlies snap their losing streak. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NBA. Local experts joining us to go over the biggest stories on the hardwood. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The Clippers were shorthanded. They did not put up much of a fight on Sunday in Cleveland. Locked On Cavs covers that lopsided affair.
Chris Manning here after the Cavs walloped the LA Clippers on Sunday night. Cedi Osman, 29 points, only Cavalier to get above 20 in a very easy win for the Cavs. They needed this. They're coming off of a bad loss to Oklahoma City. Got a Clippers team with no Kawhi, no Paul George, and they took care of business. Donovan Mitchell back as well. Had a very kind of light, easy night in a return from his groin injury after missing 2 games. Easy win for the Cavs needed, and Cedi Osman needs the win. Took his heritage night of all things. For more, check out Locked On Cavs wherever you get your podcasts.
New Orleans has now lost 8 games in a row, thanks in part to Giannis dropping a casual 50 points against them yesterday. Locked On Pelicans is trying to look on the bright side. Locked On Bucks, nothing but good things to say post-game.
Make it 8 losses in a row for the New Orleans Pelicans, and is their season teetering on the brink? I'm Jake Madison, host of Locked On Pelicans. After being first in the Western Conference at one point this season, the Pelicans have dropped to 8th. And when you look at their upcoming schedule, it's tough to find their next win. So is the season collapsing? No. Absolutely not. There just isn't much you can do when you're dealing with injuries to the top 2 guys on any team. Zion is still out and likely will be through the All-Star break. Brandon Ingram just returned from injury and looks rusty, isn't playing the second night of a back-to-back. Throw in giving CJ McCollum a rest day, and yeah, the Pelicans were going to lose to the Bucks. But remember, this team, when healthy, looks like a conference finalist, a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense. Admittedly, that's a big if, but it's worth keeping in mind when considering if the Pelicans need to make a panicky type of trade at the NBA's trade deadline.
The second 50-point game of the season for Giannis. He gets there by knocking down 2 threes in the final minutes of the game. Of course he did. My name's Kane Pittman. I'm the host of the Locked On Bucks podcast. 20 for 26 from the floor, 3 for 4 from three-point land. Incredibly efficient performance. He got the rebound, so he had a double-double, of course, as well. Shorthanded Pelicans team on a back-to-back. They had nothing to slow him down tonight, and we see this on a regular basis where Giannis just physically too much for the opposition. Just a masterclass tonight from the 2-time MVP. But overall, the Bucks have won 6 of 7. They're 4-0 since Chris Middleton came back to the lineup. And more importantly, they've scored 130-plus points in 3 of those 4 games. This is an offense that's been in the bottom 10 all season long. They continue to shoot the 3 well. The turnovers were down at 11. That is a nice number for this Bucks team that has been really turnover-prone of late. So the Bucks are starting to roll 33-17 on the season, 20-5 at home. Really nice record at 5-7 for them. Catch Locked On Bucks wherever you get your podcasts.
Coming up, Ja Morant helps the Memphis Grizzlies snap their losing streak. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by FanDuel. We are so excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America. If you are new to FanDuel, that is even better because they have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. So new customers joining today, they get to start with $150 in free bets guaranteed after you place your first $5 bet. Just go over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props, whatever you're interested in, and you know they're going to have a ton of fun stuff for you to bet on when it comes to the Super Bowl in the next couple of weeks. So you definitely want to check that out. Football fans, of course, basketball fans as well, just place that $5 bet. You will get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NBA. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you once again for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Ja Morant went the distance on Sunday. He held off the Pacers to snap their 5-game losing streak. Locked On Grizzlies tells us how Memphis got the job done. Locked On Pacers talks through the issues and possibly a bright side.
Until the Grizzlies played the Indiana Pacers on Sunday night, Ja Morant had not logged 42 minutes in a game this season. Jaren Jackson Jr.'s largest minutes played per game in this season was 33, but with 38 he crushes them, Mark. Do you think the Memphis Grizzlies wanted this one? I do think so. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and it was a 5-game losing streak. 0-5 on the West Coast and Minnesota swing for Memphis. A couple of games that were competitive, a couple that were less competitive than perhaps they should be. It was a rough road trip, but a little home cooking helped the Grizzlies eventually get things going. They were down by as many as 19 to the Indiana Pacers. Credit to the Pacers for taking advantage of Memphis' poor shooting early on. But as the Grizzlies found their stroke and got into a rhythm at home with the fans in FedEx Forum on their side, it was Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant, the Grizzlies' two best players, having massive performances helping get Memphis over the hump and off of the losing skid.
That will do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. We appreciate that. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On NBA and your favorite team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.